Today, we are going to be talking about a rebuild with the expert of rebuild with Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. Today, I am joined by Locked On Sharks host, JD Young. JD, how are you doing?
Doing good. I always like to hear everyone's new kind of intro music. And yeah, the bell just a really nice, like ding, ready to go. I feel it fits with the Flames. Yeah.
Yes. And before we dive into everything fun today, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So today we're going to be talking about a rebuild and what the start and kind of, I guess, the progress, because you don't really know when it's going to be done. This isn't like a cake. There's no real recipe for this. And I figured there is no better person to have on this show than a suffering Sharks fan. I'm sure there are many suffering Jets fans out there, though. That's kind of, you've reaped the benefits of being bad, though, I would say.
Yeah. Where to start, I get where with the rebuild.
Yeah.
My biggest piece of advice, like as you're a fan going through a rebuild and stuff, is you want a GM who is ready to capital C commit. That is, I think, the biggest thing. And like, if you look back at like the Sharks, right? Kind of their last run, that 2018-19 season where they get to the Western Conference Finals. I know you're a Bruins fan as well, and they get headshotted to death by the Blues, who turn around and do the same formula on their way to a championship. But right, and that was like okay, cool. Like I know this team is older. You have Joe Thornton, who is I think turning 39. You had guys like Joe Pavelski leave, but they still felt like the team still had a lot of its bones. But enter the 2019-2020 season, Erik Karlsson gets hurt, Evander Kane gets hurt. This team just doesn't have the same people. Patrick Marleau leaves. The whole thing falls apart, right? Then Doug Wilson, he's trying that like one last run. Like one last run, we could do this. We could do this. The writing was on the wall. This team just was done. But unfortunately, you were still kind of paying the bill for these runs, like with all the big contracts on there. You owed the Sens a unprotected first round pick, which ended up becoming the third overall pick in the 2020 draft. Like there was a lot of just kind of that you had to kind of process before you could actually get to the real start of the rebuild. So that was, I think, kind of the first part of this. It's just kind of figuring out when it's actually time to rebuild. And I think this is a big question for the Flames. And, it seems like they've gone through a lot of changes over the past couple seasons. And I don't know if they're going to try to we can still salvage this, or is this the guys, it's over, turn off the lights, it's over, we need to start something new.
Yeah. I think that with Brad Treliving's departure, who was very non-committal in his last few years as a general manager, bringing in a first-time general manager like Craig Conroy was a bit of a risk because you don't know, you're a rookie. You don't know what you're doing, really. Like, you don't know.
Yep.
No, you don't know what to expect. And you completely get that too with Mike Grier. Like, there's nothing to base there's no track record. So what are you going off of or anything like that? And you don't, like a Peter Chiarelli, you know what you're getting with him as a general manager. So I think the Flames are just at that spot where they're saying, yeah, like we're still going to be there. But deep down, they know, like, if you finish with another top 10 pick this year, that's successful. And I think that's a tough pill to swallow because no one really enjoys watching bad hockey. And it
I've
doesn't
watched a lot of bad hockey, but like, so like you bring up the Greer thing. Even Mike Greer, when he first started, was like, "Hey, I don't want to tear this thing down. Like, I don't want to do a full like Arizona type of rebuild where we burn this thing down." Like in his opening press conference, like says that we feel like we might have to take a step back to take 2 steps forward, and we're fine with that. Got through literally like a month later, he trades Brent Burns, which franchise icon,
Right.
and the return on that trade, looking back now, kind of 2 years, maybe not the best, but Brent Burns had all the leverage since with a 3-team no trade clause. Like he wanted to go to a chip, like a content, like Greer didn't have a ton of leverage for that. Then over the next kind of season or so, Greer, I think the reality set into Greer, like, no, this is a total gut job. Like there is not much salvageable on this roster right now. And Greer made a lot of hard, like decisions, but were good for the franchise, right? You traded Tomas Hertl, beloved San Jose Shark. Not only did you trade him to your enemy, like you're the most hated franchise in Shark, like to the Vegas Golden Knights, right? You traded Erik Karlsson after a 101-point season where he wins the Norris. Finally shows some return on that trade, right? Like you traded Timo Meier, one of your homegrown players. Like all these decisions, like in a vacuum, sound like, what are you doing, man?
Right.
But they were all the right decisions because none of those guys are going to help this next core of Sharks players win. And the trade returns at the time looked a little iffy, but Miker had a plan, and it's kind of starting to come to fruition now as the Sharks. You have the best prospect pool in the NHL. I'll fight anybody right now on that. And like you have it, and there's an actual plan and a vision, and you can see a timeline for the Sharks right now. So while it's like, again, trading Hertl, trading Karlsson, trading Brent Burns, trading Timo Meier all sound like terrible ideas, they were the right idea. And Mike Greer knew that you had to rip off the Band-Aid. You couldn't continue to try to just patch this thing up, or else you're just going to end up one of those creamy middle teams that are like the Minnesota Wild, who just make it to the playoffs every year, and that's about it. Like he has a plan to see like this to be long-term sustainable success.
Yeah, like it's not just a short-term vision of, okay, we're just playing for like at least round one, so we can get the revenue for those home games, which has unfortunately been the philosophy for the Flames over the last however many years. But coming up next, we're going to continue to talk about the rebuild process and just kind of what those first steps are, and accepting that first step in grieving is that's denial, I think. But anyways, regardless, we are going to take a quick break and come back with some more fun rebuild talk here on Locked On Flames. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. JD, are you going to any fun concerts or events or anything soon?
No, I have children, so I don't get to do any of that fun stuff. But I have used Game Time in the past to buy Sharks tickets. It makes it super easy. I did buy tickets for Ed Sheeran for my wife for her birthday last year. Super easy to use Game Time to do that. But I don't get to enjoy those things, unfortunately, because again, I have small children.
But you get to make other people happy with the Game Time app. I used Game Time to go down to Long Island last season to watch the Flames and see Mackenzie Weegar's hat trick. It was so fun, so easy to use. The app offered that view from your seat experience and all-in pricing. So it was so easy and just a very streamlined process that I feel like you don't get sometimes with any online purchase. But take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames and Locked On Sharks wherever you get your podcasts, because it's going to be a very long season, and why not deal with, misery loves company, and it's going to be a long season, but it's been a long 5 years for the Sharks. What would you tell 2019-2020 season JD and other Sharks fans?
Yeah, it's going to be a really long time. Like, you're not going to sniff the playoffs, and you should just rip the Band-Aid off soon. That's the one thing with the Sharks is, like, if I had wished they were ripped the Band-Aid off sooner and stop trying to like fool themselves into thinking like we can turn this around in a year or two, or we can do the retool, right? Everyone likes that word, the retool, but it's so rarely successful. I think you could maybe point to like the Dallas Stars as a team that was able to successfully retool because they were able to find insane talent at the end of the first round. And now they're starting to kind of reap the benefits of that with guys like Logan Stankoven, Wyatt Johnson, like those type of guys. But there's a reason why very few teams are able to do it. Most teams just kind of push things off for a couple seasons until they realize, yeah, we're not gonna be able to do this. Like, we have to fully commit to being bad, and because that's the best way to acquire good talent is to be as bad as possible and hope you get a little lucky in the draft lottery, but still put yourself in a position to be as able to get that top tier blue chip talent, and then see if you can develop it. So yeah, that would be my one thing is like, stop lying to yourself. This isn't going to happen, especially as a Sharks fan who's watched basically nothing but playoff runs for 15 to 20 straight years, or 15 years. Like, it was definitely a change of mindset for myself as a Sharks fan to kind of like go like not caring about prospects to be like, now the children are the future, and that's the only thing I really care about right now is watching the prospects and kind of how their timeline and how everything develops and kind of that whole hockey. But yeah, it's don't waste these years just kind of meandering around.
This sounds so familiar. I cannot emphasize that enough, because that's what a lot of Flames fans have been saying for really as long as I've been covering the team since 2020 now. But earlier you mentioned how the returns for certain trades seemed bleh at the time.
Yep.
And that is something that has come up a lot with the Flames. The Chris Tanev trade immediately comes to mind, and even the Noah Hannafin one, because did not feel like good returns. But like you said, this isn't for immediate success.
Yep.
This is a long-term plan, and eventually it'll all kind of piece itself together. And where are the Sharks in that process?
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you look back to the Timo Meier trade, I think this is the one where most fans felt like Mike Grier didn't get enough, right? You had Timo Meier, like kind of having his breakout season. He eventually had that was a 40-goal season for Timo Meier. Going into last year of his deal, you had the decision: do you keep Timo Meier, and then you're going to have to give him a big, 8-year, 8x8 type of contract, which as the Sharks are been saddled with for a long time, and trying to work out of these contracts here. You trade him, you get Fabian Zetterlund, late first round pick. You get Shakir Mukhamadullin, who is a former first round pick, and then you get another pick, a second round pick that could become a first round pick. And at the time, you were like, okay, Shakir Mukhamadullin hasn't really done too much. Late first round pick, Fabian Zetterlund, and then Fabian Zetterlund had an awful start to his career in San Jose. I think he had 3 points in his 22 games after the trade, and you were just like, "What? I don't see like what is this guy here, right?" Fast forward a year, Fabian Zetterlund gets comfortable. I think I talked to him this last season, and I asked him, just that kind of mentality of getting traded from a team like that was young and fun and in the middle of a playoff hunt like New Jersey to go into one of the worst teams in the NHL. And he said it was tough, right? And especially at the end of it, but he kind of recommitted himself that offseason. And then he had a breakout season last year with 24 goals. Just especially on a $1.5 million contract, just like a huge season with him. You draft Quentin Musty. A lot of draft kind of experts had as a top 15 pick. You get him at 26. You then have Shakir Mukhamadullin, who really kind of broke out last year in his first full season in the AHL, was named to AHL All-Star, and is going to be competing for an NHL roster. So at the time, you were like, about this pick, but you fast forward, 18 months from now, and it's like, Fabian Zetterlund had a great season and looks like a piece of the kind of the a solid contributor for the Sharks for years to come. And he's going to need a new deal after this season. But you got Quentin Musty, who's one of the most exciting prospects in the OHL and could lead the OHL in points this upcoming season. If he doesn't make the Sharks, like you have Shakir Mukhamadullin, who looks like to be a really solid second pairing defenseman at the word, like type of player. So yeah, like at the time the trade felt very underwhelming, but now as guys kind of develop, I think Mike Grier has really earned the benefit of the doubt for me, even like this past week where it's like you traded for Cody Ceci and you only got like a third round pick, but it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Grier turns Cody Ceci into something else at the trade deadline, because the Cody Ceci is the type of defenseman that every playoff team is looking for. Guy who can play penalty kill. He's gonna, maybe not the most glamorous offensively, but he's going to, GMs value his game. So I think for Mike Grier, he's really earned the benefit of the doubt. And, that doesn't include like the Askarov trade and some of the other pieces that he's been able to acquire for this Sharks, this new kind of Sharks core and where they're heading. So, I can totally understand this doesn't feel like enough. Mm-hmm. But you got to let it simmer. I think we're so we need instant reaction.
Yeah.
I'm trying my best to be one of those fans. It's like, okay, I can understand why this doesn't feel like instant reaction. But give us some time. Even the Hurdle trade, you had to give up 2 third-round picks, but you've basically turned Tomas Hurdle into Askarov, and that's pretty good to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And what does Askarov bring to the Sharks now that they have an NHL goaltender?
Hope to be NHL goaltender. So yes, no, I think for the Sharks, they have had such a huge problem. I mean, this goes back years now of drafting and developing goaltenders, and they've spent solid picks like third round picks, and I know goalies can come from anywhere, as we know with Dustin Wolf, and how many undrafted guys are just good, and goalies, everybody has their own path, especially with goalies. Mm-hmm. But Askarov is a legitimate Vezina quality candidate, type of goalie. Mm-hmm. It's between him and Jesper Wallstedt of who you would kind of pick between as the two best goalie prospects. But the thing that it's great about him is his timeline perfectly kind of marries with the Celebrini Smith core and kind of this timeline with them of the next 2 to 3 years, these guys are going to be starting to kind of enter that prime, and he is going to be right there with them. And it's just, you can see where everything is kind of coming together at the right time. Just as the Sharks cap situation is cleaning up, everything is just kind of marrying up perfect for them. And it gives the Sharks Sharks prospect pool's been very, very good, especially in the forward department, but has always had a kind of a question mark of who's that goalie, who's going to be the next goalie of the future. And Askarov hopefully answers that for San Jose.
Yeah, that's great. Obviously Logan Cooley is now a Flame. So
Devin Cooley.
Logan Cooley plays for Utah.
Yes.
The team formerly known as the Arizona Coyotes. So thank you for Devin Cooley and his very cute bunny.
Super great dude. Very chatty. Really, he also joined the show last season. Really fun dude. He will talk your ear off. Great guy.
Love that. We love to see some personality and excitement in the Flames locker room after the last few seasons where it's been a little dark. But coming up next, we're gonna wrap up the show. I'm gonna put JD on the hot seat with some true or false questions. We'll be right back. Thanks, everyone, for tuning into today's episode of Locked On Flames and making Locked On Flames part of your day. You can follow us on Twitter at Jess Belmosto and JD at MyFryHole. I thought that this would be a fun little segment to wrap up the show because who doesn't love, coming back to revisit these things in a few months when things are going really, really good.
Yes,
really, really
you only remember when they're really good. When they're bad, I have no recollection of that.
No,
The Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah, see, I have no I don't recall that. Yeah,
it's on film, but I
don't recall that.
No, but outside the show, we both talked about kind of where we think the Flames and Sharks will fall. So we'll start with this one. The Sharks will finish ahead of the Flames.
That's my spicy hot take of the season. Is I think the Sharks have a better record than the Flames this season, which would be a huge turnaround for one of the worst teams we've seen in modern NHL history, with their minus 150 goal differential. They were the worst team in the NHL when it came up to giving goals, second worst team in the NHL when it came to actually scoring goals. But the future's teal, buddy. So I'm going to say yes, the Sharks have a better record than the Flames. And guess what? It's actually probably the best thing in the world for the Flames to actually kind of crash and burn this season because this 2025 NHL draft, it's really good, especially at the top end. It is really good. So
that makes me very happy to hear. Not to divert too far off track, but do you know if it's supposed to be like forward heavy or defenseman heavy?
It's got a little bit of everything. James Hagan is the kind of first guy, like expected kind of first guy to go in the draft this year. There is some nice mix. It's probably a little bit more forward heavy, especially at the very, very tippy top. But when you're a team that is rebuilding, it's always, especially in the picking in the top 5 to 10, you always just want best player available because you never know who pans out. You never know who's going to become available, et cetera, et cetera. So just take the best player available. But yeah, the top of the 2025 draft is not, I wouldn't say like 2023 with Bedard, but like after Bedard, where it was like really, really heavy, like talented, like not a generational player like Bedard, but it was kind of like that, where if you're picking the top 5, you're going to walk away with a really good player.
Well, that is music to my ears. This next one is kind of crazy, but I see this as possible. Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith have more points combined than the one and only Jonathan Huberdeau.
This is an easy over for me. Yes, true. So I did a couple shows recently where I looked at former first picks first overall picks like Macklin Celebrini. I went back through the Crosby draft to now, looked at kind of how these players have performed their first season. Then I looked kind of even broke it down into centers to see like what they do. So the average first overall pick, this includes Bedard, Hughes, Hischier, Matthews, McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Bryant Nugent-Hopkins, John Tavares, Steven Stamkos, and Sidney Crosby. They played an average of 72 games, 23 goals, with 33 assists. So that averages out to about 56, 57 points. So I'm going to take that with Macklin Celebrini, and then looking at what kind of players in the same, like Will Smith, what they've done recently. So kind of top 10 picks, played 1 year college, and then came straight to the pros. Those type of guys average about 20 goals with 25 assists. So You're basically saying Huberdeau has to get 100 points this year, and I don't think Huberdeau is getting 100 points this year. So I will easily take Smith and Celebrini versus Huberdeau.
Yeah, no, that's I should have just picked one of them, but I was like, oh, it's okay. Like,
you were trying to be nice as you're the host. You're trying to be nice to your guest. But give me Smith and Celebrini. Would you be surprised if Smith outscored Huberdeau this year? Not Smith. If Celebrini outscored Huberdeau this year,
I wouldn't put it past them.
How many points did Huberdeau have last year? It was
55, 56, I think.
I mean, Mikkel Granlund had more points than Huberdeau last year. That's
that's tough. That is very tough. But yeah, no, it's been a nice decline for Huberdeau. His first
6 more seasons, right? Something like that.
Who's counting?
Who's counting? It's like the Mark Edward Vlasic contract. He's there until the sun explodes. So
exactly. You know, the Flames will have a new arena by then. Like there's good things that will happen leading up to that.
Yes.
And then the last one, Askarov will have a better season than Dustin Wolf.
I'm going to go Dustin Wolf here, just because I think he plays more games right now. Because if you look at the Sharks, right, you still have Mackenzie Blackwood, you still have Vitek Vanacek, are both on the roster, both entering the last year of their respective deals. I don't expect both those guys to be on the roster by the end of the season. I could see one, but not both, because I think they'll want to clear a path for Askarov to play. So I think just by sheer number, games played, I'm going to go with Dustin Wolf, because I think he'll probably get 30-ish. I think would probably sounds about right. I know they have a bit of a 3-headed monster there right now. But I think you're the Flames, right, you want to see Wolf get like real action, even if the team in front of him is not the best. You still want him to get those valuable reps right now. So I will say he has a better season. I could see maybe like Askarov could have better like save percentages of that, just because of a smaller sample size type of thing. But I think though you'll probably be coming out like, okay, Wolf kind of went through his lumps this season, and the future is bright for Wolf, while Askarov is probably going to be doing that next in the 25-26 season, kind of going through that first year lumps and kind of figuring things out. So I'll give the nod to Dustin Wolf this time.
Well, that's fantastic, because he is a California native and is a San Jose boy himself. So thank you for joining me today on this fine episode and therapy session of the process of rebuilding. We meet every Tuesday, 6:00 Eastern time. Bring your snacks if you know. But where can everyone find you and Locked On Sharks?
Of course, you can follow Locked On Sharks wherever you get podcasts and watch on YouTube as well, especially if you're want to start getting into the prospects. I think I do a pretty solid job of kind of covering that going into the draft. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryHole.
Well, thank you so much, JD, for joining us today, and make sure you're all following and subscribe to Locked On Flames as well. We'll be back to daily shows before you know it. And until then, stay safe, stay warm, stay cool, and remember to be kind.